Hey everyone, Samuel here. Welcome to Sovereign Kennels. I'm going to be doing a probably three-part series of grooming an Afghan Hound. This is predominantly going to be a pet grooming video, but I am going to groom the saddle like I would for a show. And I encourage you, if you have a dog at home that's intact, that still has a natural saddle, you can use this method as well. I'm going to run through some of the tools that I use for that grooming. I'm going to do a couple of minutes, quick little synopsis, and then I'm actually going to go back into each type of tool that I use and give a little bit more detail. So if you just want to get a little quick preview, watch the first couple of minutes of this video. But if you want to dive a little deeper into some of those tools, please hang out through the whole video. If you like things, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you want to see that grooming video of the Afghan. So the first few tools that I'm going to be using, the first one is our pin brush. These come in a lot of different sizes, varieties, colors, pin length, all that. I'll show you some of these here in just a minute. The second one we have is a slicker brush. So this slicker brush is very similar to the pin brush, but it does work a little bit differently. The teeth are shaped differently, the rubber is different, so we will talk about those things. Next would be our comb. You need a good, strong, sturdy comb, something that has nice teeth, wide on one side and narrow on the other side. So when you use these are great for breaking out mats, separating mats gently and tediously, or finishing out and just combing out. We use these boar bristle brushes. These are great for the saddle, the face, finishing touches again. We use this is called a magnetic stripper. So this is for the saddle, the face, and the neck, anywhere that you have the short hair. We also use that stripping knife in conjunction with things like this. These are pumice stones. This one's on a handle, so you can use your thumb to grab and pull. This one is used more like a block to pull across the back. We also have these rakes. Some people know these as mat splitters, de-shedding rakes, things like that. We use these a little bit differently, and I will show you how I'm going to use this on the saddle as well as on the face. Something that we only use when we're not showing, clippers. So clippers are not allowed. Our standard says that they cannot be shaved or they have to be shown in their natural state to show. So clippers I'm going to use, but it is going to be for a pet grooming or a retired dog actually. He's no longer showing. We use scissors. I'm going to show you a few different sets of scissors, but having just a nice pair of scissors is always wonderful. And of course, we need to always make sure we have our toenail clippers. Even if your dogs exercise a lot, run a lot, you always want to make sure that they're not growing out too much where they're going to be harmful to themselves. So there are some of our tools. I'm going to go back through in a little bit more detail now, and I'm going to talk about all these tools, compare them to some of the other ones that look like them, different shapes and sizes, and so on and so forth. So if you want to stick around for that, I'd appreciate it. If not, we'll see you guys in the next video. All right, so let's get into our pin brush. So this is probably the most used tool for an Afghan Hound. If your dog is going to have coat, you need to have a pin brush. It's sometimes really hard to understand what you're looking for when you go to a store and you see a whole wall of these and you're like, I don't know what I'm looking at, right? They're all wood. They all have these like sharp pinny things sticking out. What am I looking for, right? So you can see here on the table, I have a lot of different shapes and sizes. You can get these ovals, you can get the oblong, you can get them more of the horizontal versus vertical. You can get them large or small. And then pin length. You can get some with really short pins. You can get some with really long pins. And then you have these odd ones. So this is a boar bristle brush with plastic pins. I couldn't find it, but I also have one of these brushes with wooden pins. They say they're really good for static. what you want to look for when you're going to the store and you're testing out brushes is number one, the weight. They all, again, different sizes and shapes are going to weigh different. The wood is going to weigh different. So kind of figure out what weight works for you that you're going to be able to brush with for a good amount of time. It can take up to an hour to 5 hours to groom an Afghan. So can you brush with this for a long time? That's always my number one. What is comfortable weight-wise? The second most important thing that I found is the rubber. The rubber that sets the pins into the brush is really what is going to make it a soft brush or a stiff brush. So this one, when I flex the pins, they bounce back really fast. They don't have a ton of give with ease. This is considered a stiff brush. But if we come to something like this one, much easier to flex the pins back. They still spring back quickly, which is good. It means the rubber is a good rubber. If they kind of just bounce back, but they don't stand erect, it's probably not the best rubber, right? So the rubber is really important that these are set in. When you're looking at the stiffness of the rubber, that's also going to depend on what coat you're brushing. So I'm going to be working on a dog, Thor, who has a very dense coat. It's a good texture, but it's extremely dense. So finishing the dog, I use a softer pinned brush. But working the dog from a bath brushing out, I use a more stiff brush because it gets through his denser coat. But if I'm brushing a dog that has more of a patterned coat or just a more delicate coat overall, I don't want to use the stiff brush. I'm going to come back over to something that's more delicate. Something to really consider is the more brushing you do, the more wear you get on the rubber, the more soft it's going to get. So if you buy something that you feel, oh, this is really soft, it's going to work on my delicate haired dog, don't use that on your dense coated dog and then expect it to still work on your other dog for a long period of time. You're going to wear out the rubber, or some of these stiff brushes are going to wear to be the same as a soft brush. So over time, your brushes are going to evolve and change to what they are. So I always buy more rigid brushes. I have 10 Afghans, so I groom a lot. So my rigid, stiff brushes tend to become a little bit softer. And so I just kind of choose from there. I give them a test before I, brush the dog. I feel what brush I have in my hand at that time. I personally don't use these type of small brushes for maintenance grooming. I'm gonna use these more for the show, maybe under the armpit or in between the back legs, somewhere where it's a little bit harder to get with a much larger brush. I prefer these much larger brushes for side coat, legs, overall body mass. Sometimes I use these smaller brushes for when I go in the ring. These two are the exact same other than the size. So this one is easy to put in my pocket when I'm showing. This one is really great to have on the table for when I'm brushing out. So that's about it for the pin brushes. This one I want to touch on is a boar bristle brush with plastic pins. Completely different than these others. This you can groom a dog out completely from start to finish with if they have the right coat. The dog I'm going to be grooming, never. He's too dense of a coat to get through. These are great finishing at the shows. They can really help lay the coat down depending on how staticky the hair is and all those things. I wanted to show you quickly too. The easiest way to clean a brush is to grab your comb using the side with the wide tines. You're just gonna stick this in and pull it, right? So you're just gonna pull all that hair out. And then once you do that, you can come to the fine tine side and just get the rest out. And that's gonna help you keep your brushes cleaner. Works the same in a pin brush. Just grab your pin brush and rake through. You can keep your brushes really clean. It's very important to keep the hair out of your brushes. Even while you're grooming, just pull the hair out that's coming out, toss it in the trash or on the floor, however you like, but make sure to keep your brushes clean. Now, I just want to touch on how do you know when your brush is no longer valuable, right? When is its life over? So right here you can see on this brush, these pins have really started to get pressed in. Here, this is the same type of deal. It's hard to see in certain ones, but you can see where some are sticking out and some are sticking in. So you can come in here and you can pull these pins out either with your fingers like this, and you can just pull them out. Sometimes that won't work. When you start using the brush again, it's just gonna push right back in the rubber. Typically that means your rubber has either cracked or just become too loose with moisture that the pin can't sit in it firmly anymore, and you're just gonna be fighting a losing battle. I do not know if you can send brushes in anywhere to have the rubber pulled and have the pins reset, because the pins are still perfectly fine on a lot of them, but unfortunately I don't know if that's possible. So I hope that answers your questions about pin brushes. I hope it helps you pick out what pin brush you want to use for your dog. And please just leave a comment below if you have questions on something that I didn't touch on with these. Let me move on to the slicker brushes. Slicker brushes are very similar to pin brushes. There's not a lot of variety with slicker brushes. They're a little bit more uniform. I prefer this brand. I don't even know the brand. I get it on Amazon. And you can see they come in 3 sizes. So we have the large, and then the medium, a little bit smaller, and then the small. So these all work the same. I find the large ones to be just a little bit too much surface area. This is 4 inches by 2.5 inches, I believe. And it's just a little bit too much surface area. When I'm blow drying the dogs, the wind hits the back of this slicker brush and diverts the wind, so it doesn't actually hit the dog where I want it. I find these that are in the medium range, so this is 1.5 inch by 4 inches. This one just fits my hand really well, and it doesn't block as much of the wind. The small little ones are great for small dogs, maybe again in smaller, tighter areas, but they just don't have the surface reach that I prefer. But you might be different. You might really like that smaller brush, or you might like the larger brush. Things we want to avoid with slicker brushes are some of these like major market slicker brushes you can get at Walmart and things like that. Sorry about it, Walmart. Some of these ones that you get at cheaper stores, the rubber again is so stiff. It's really hard to bend these at all. And that will just tear coat out. It's unfortunately not going to be able to just get through the coat. The same as some of these that are gonna flex really easily, and they're gonna not grab the coat and rip it out, but they're gonna be able to just slide through it with give. It's really important that your rubber on your pins gives as well as it has rigidity. It's kind of that balance you have to find. That's pretty much it for slicker brushes. Those ones follow suit similarly to the pin brushes, obviously just a little different shape. I guess I didn't talk about the pins. So the pins on a pin brush are straight. They have no curvature or anything like that. They're just a straight pin. On a slicker brush, these ones actually have a hook on the end. So they come down and they hook back. And this is actually because these are meant to grab the hair and pull the hair. Again, you don't want to pull it out. You want to have just tension enough to get knots and tangles out. But these are going to be used a little bit more sparingly. The pin brush is much more forgiving when you use it than the slicker brush. This is going to be less forgiving. Kind of if you're thinking about it as levels, your pin brush level 1, this is going to be your level 2. So when I'm looking at a comb, I want to follow the same premise as I did with the pin brush. Lightweight, something that's easy to move, something that fits well in your hand. They do make wooden ones that have handles off to the side if you do have arthritis and need something in a different shape. I have larger hands. I do enjoy something that just has a larger spine on it. These really narrow spines, unfortunately for me, they're just harder to grip onto for long periods of time. You can get these different brands all over the place. I prefer something with a larger spine to hold on to. I prefer one that has the majority of the teeth in the wide, wide teeth, and then just a small section of narrow teeth. This is the exact same one. This one is split 50-50. So this side's narrow, this side is wide. Now, this one, you can see, same thing. This one's just larger. These ones are awesome for finishing a dog. You want to be able to just go right in and kind of just touch it up. These are great for putting in your pocket. Girls can put it in their hair, things like that. But these are also a little bit more controllable when you're only needing about 3 inches of comb. There's other ones out there on the market, small ones, big ones, even wider teeth. You can see this one just has really long teeth. This one's really heavy. This one has quite a heavy spine on it. These ones are aluminum. They're very lightweight. All right, I quickly want to touch on these boar bristle brushes. So you can get these as true boar bristle brushes, or you can get them as synthetic. I use these as a finishing brush, typically on the face, the neck, and the saddle. So once you kind of get everything stripped out, you're going to just use this to help lay the hair down, smooth it all out, and then it kind of will show you if you have imperfections still. But these are fantastic to have. These last a lifetime because you don't use them very often. These two are very similar. One has very tight together bristles, and the other one has very spread out bristles. So the next section is a set of tools. I think you pretty much just use all 3 of them in conjunction together. They are individual tools, but sometimes you need one or the other, within 2 seconds of each other. They just really work together. So the first one I'm going to go over is our rake. So I prefer this rake for the Afghan Hounds. This one is very, very little. You can see the teeth are very close together. They stand up, maybe just about 1 millimeter or 2. They're very small, very tight. This is great for the saddle, the tail, the face, the neck, anywhere that you need, again, detailed trimming and cleaning up. This will not work on side coat or anything like that. It's just too fine of work. This is one I will be using. I'll be showing you how to use this one. The next step up, you'll see this one has a little bit longer teeth on it. And this one just has a little bit different shape. So this one can still be used kind of for the similar effect, but the teeth are wider apart and it's going to take a different amount of hair. Then we step up to these larger ones. So these larger rakes have wider teeth. The width does not matter when it comes to a rake. So for me, all I'm really looking at is the teeth width and the depth. Most of them are not going to be super deep. You can see the smallest one compared to that one, a little different, but these are going to take a ton of hair. These wider ones are what we would use on the body if we have just a dense coat that we're trying to take bulk out of. These ones that are finer with the teeth closer together are our finishing or for our close contact type grooming. So while you're working with your rakes, you're also going to be working with your pumice stones. So pumice stones are very easy to use. You can get them in a big block and break them into smaller sizes depending what fits your hand. You can kind of see I can hold this, I can use it for 4 inches, or I can turn it and use it for 2 inches. And we also have some with handles. This is a very old one that I dug out, but it's great for if you need to pluck around the face, that you can pinch with your finger, grab hair and pull. And then along with those are definitely going to be our stripping knives. So the stripping knife is going to be your number one tool for grooming a saddle. The rake is going to take out bulk, but it's only going to get to a certain point. Once you get down to that certain point, then you need to turn to your stripping knife. We call this a magnetic stripper. Not sure where the name came from, but it's a serrated edge. The serrated edge faces the dog's body. So the smooth side actually faces up. You want to hold it with a nice grip, and you do long strokes. You do not do small jerky strokes, and we do not grab it with our thumb and pinch it and pull like we do a terrier. This is to take undercoat out. So it's coming across that coarser saddle, and it's grabbing the more cottony, softer coat under it, and it's pulling it out. Sometimes I will use something like this, which is more of a terrier stripping knife. The dog I'm going to be grooming, he has a really dense coat, and parts of his saddle, they just get really hairy because he is such a hairy dog. He has such a dense coat. And so this stripping knife, I will actually use it to pinch the hair and pull it out like I would a terrier. This is not as commonly used. Dogs that have, less hair, we just don't really use these types of tools. You're gonna stick with your magnetic stripper, but these ones are good to have for certain areas. The tail, I really like cleaning the tail up with these types of stripping knives as well. All right, let's move on. Scissors. Scissors are always something that most groomers, especially with coated breeds, need to have. If you are new and you are just learning about grooming, I recommend getting yourself an inexpensive pair of 6 to 8 inch shears. Do not get a 10, 12 inch. Those are huge for like poodles. These ones are really nice because they're controllable. The blade itself is maybe 4 inches. And these are great for just being able to help split a big mat if you have it. These are great if you need to just trim a little tiny bit. These will leave a scissor mark, right? So when you cut with these, they will leave a straight line when you cut. We have curved scissors, which are also really great. Same principle though. You cut with these, they're going to leave a straight line. These are straight edges. We have other scissors. These thicker ones are called chunkers, and these thinner ones are called thinning shears. So these chunkers, sometimes we need to take bulk hair off, and so we can go in and use the chunkers. These ones are kind of in between taking a straight line, like a straight scissor, and leaving some, like a shear. These take a lot. You use these very sparingly. The thinning shear takes very little, and you can be a little more aggressive. When I say a little more aggressive, it's like one little notch up, right? You are not just going to go in there and chop, 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 right? Afghans, everything is very meticulous. Our standard is very specific that you cannot shave them, and they need to be shown in their natural state. So obviously we have dogs with immense amount of coat. It has to be managed. We do have to trim it, but we need to make it look like it's natural. So thinning shears are typically very safe. They're good to practice with. When you get more comfortable with these, then you can start using your chunkers. I really only ever use straight scissors on Afghans that are pets. I pretty much never use these on dogs that are showing. All right, our last tool for this video is going to be our clippers. So clippers and Afghans only meet when they're not showing. So for pet trims, for shave downs, for anything like that, it's totally fine. I typically use between a 10 blade and I'm gonna do a full body clip with a 5F. 5 is denoting the length of the blade, and the F is saying that it's a fine blade, meaning the blade width, each tine of the blade width is closer together than a standard. I like these. I feel like the Afghans have a really delicate skin when you're shaving, and it really helps prevent any skin nicks or anything like that. I also personally like the length of the 5. 5 and 7 are kind of interchangeable for me. 10 is really close for an Afghan, and then once you get a little bit longer than 5, I just find it harder to get through their entire coat with a smooth, seamless finish. I'm not grooming for other people. These dogs are my personal dogs, so if I mess up their haircut, I'm the only one who gets to complain. But you know, if you're a groomer and you're trying to send a dog home, you probably know clippers really well, and you can kind of gauge that as you will. But I kind of like starting fresh, down at a short length, and my adults just look like puppies growing back out as they grow. That's what I enjoy personally. So these are great tools. These are an advanced tool. You probably are grooming for a little bit before you make the investment to spend a few $100s on a good set, as well as blades. You know, 3 blades was probably $60 or $70. So these do get pretty expensive. With Afghans, thankfully, we don't really use them very much, only in the pet grooming. I am going to be using these on Thor when I groom him. I'm shaving his entire body, but I'm going to do a second video. So if you don't want to shave your dog's entire body, you want to keep them in just a manageable length, 3 or 4 inches, but you don't like having a fuzzy face or things like that. That's what I'm going to show you in the video with these, is just cleaning up the face under the ears and part of that neck. All right, well, I think that's it for this video, you guys. I appreciate you hanging out with me, learning a little bit about the tools we use for our Afghans, and I hope you come back and watch the videos of us grooming. I don't know if you hear the puppies playing in the other room. All right, have a great one. Talk to you next time.